Are you ready? This is an instructional video on how to get a straw into a beverage that has a lot of ice in it. Okay, as you can see, it's kind of jammed up here. So what you need to do is force it in as hard as you can, and that's how you get the straw. So, as you know from the other two videos, YouTube followers and friends, this is Brandon, and he is a super American, a Navajo. So he's American twice. And if you miss those videos, you need to go back and view those videos because they're amazing videos. Brandon has so many great ideas. I mean, we stumbled across each other when I was going through Arizona, right?
Yeah, shallow.
Yeah, shallow. I was all over the place out west, and I was like, we bumped into each other, and we just had this kindred spirit, and so we started chit-chatting about, a bunch of stuff, and you can view those things. We talked about tearing down the statues, and I was the devil, so to speak, and so tear this
I believe
down.
your words was a white devil.
I was the white devil.
Your words, not mine, for sure.
I love it. But I mean, I really like talking to Brandon because he's just he's got an educator's mind where he's thoughtfully put things together. So with that, we're going to
put it together so you don't have to.
There you go. There you go. That's awesome. So I called up Brandon, and we'll just replay the call, so to speak. And I said, Brandon, have you ever heard about Slaughter Day?
No, I had not. Still haven't really gotten or heard anything else on it, I guess.
Yeah. So it's this thing that it supposedly happened. Quite a few years before our nation was birthed. But the thing that was disturbing to me, and it's interesting that as a Native American, that you've never heard of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so supposedly they went out and butchered all these, the pilgrims butchered a bunch of Indians, and then there's pilgrims that got hurt in the process too. And you never really heard any of this.
No, as far as school's concerned, I mean, nowadays in this kind of like new woke culture that we have found ourselves in the midst of, it wouldn't surprise me that they'd either make something like that up, or if it was, one of those things that was kind of omitted from, children's education. I could see why that would make sense, because it's not like you want to present that to, elementary school or even middle school. But either way, I hadn't heard about it from the education system, and nowadays it would just be something that's like, oh, they just pulled that out, of the air to continue this cycle of racism, or whatever you would call it, just tension based on race, or skin color.
So trying to divide basically the American culture from anybody that's not white is what you're saying there.
Essentially, yeah, it's another way to demonize whitey.
Yeah.
Oh, look at what these evil white people did, way back when, and more of a reason why America's racist today. That's how I see them, taking it or trying to present it.
Why do you think they would? What's your opinion of why many media people would do that, and even education people, and why would you think they would do that?
To foment division as well as take down what's left of the country. The media does it to keep us fighting with one another and keep us in the dark. So that way the powers that be, not talking about President Trump, but people that represent the shadow government, so to speak, or the deep state that many people may be hearing about nowadays. Um, it keeps the light off them, so they're able to continue to operate stealthily. And then, what was the second part of the question? Educators?
Yeah, I mean, that's really interesting what you said there. Yeah, I want to delve into that a little bit more. The stealthily portion, so the behind the scenes moving in. What do you think's going on there? Let's talk a little bit more about that. Your feelings there.
I just see it as good versus evil, and it's kind of a shame to see because now you're seeing like the emotions stirred up in people, mostly the black community, over things like this. And then again, this something like Slaughter Day would kind of evoke the same reaction in other Native Americans, whether they be Navajo or Sioux or Apache or whatever. It's going to stir up that emotional reaction, like, oh, white people and I'm the victim here, so I could lead to the mentality that I deserve free stuff in lieu of reparations or what have you, actual justice. But it's this evil, and it seems to me has been alive and well. I mean, evil and good have been alive and well since the beginning of mankind. And this kind of evil that uses institutions and governments has been creeping upon American soil for past, I don't know, 100 years, possibly since America's inception. And it's just been slowly working its way towards what we're seeing now, where you have, another re-election cycle where last 2016 was basically what's happening this year, 2020. You have a more than likely corrupt politician with some ill connections, backroom deals, and you have the other candidate that's fighting for our side. I, of course, mean President Trump, and they're doing everything they can they're pulling out all the stops to try to sabotage his reelection, and thusly putting a stop to the American Renaissance that is beginning to take shape.
Yeah. So, but back to Thanksgiving, what was your impression of Thanksgiving? I mean, who started that? Why was it started? Things like that.
Oh, I have no idea.
Well, it was started by Abraham Lincoln, 1863. It was it was the middle of the Civil War, and and again, he was. I'm not necessarily everybody's seen my video on no party, and I'm still a no party person. I still think that it's better if every man, woman that runs for office in our country stands on their own merit instead of joining a party. I think that parties are corrupt on both sides, and I think that there's a lot of things that could be done differently, and I think that it's better if you stand on your own. Plus, the amount of money that goes into putting somebody in politics, I mean, you could feed, you could solve a third world country's problems. Yes or no? Yes, right?
If you're to abstain from a party, you could fix more problems.
What I'm trying to say is the amount of money that they pour into getting somebody into office, the billions of dollars and millions of dollars, they could, you could solve a lot of problems with that money instead of just putting it into airtime on TV and things like that. Anyway, that's a side issue. But my the thing with Abraham Lincoln is he was a very conservative man. He did not like racism. He emancipated the slaves. And even in our video, we pointed out that they're trying to tear down the statues of Abraham Lincoln. So why they would do that, I have no clue. But 1863, middle of this dilemma in our country, he put together Thanksgiving, and it has stayed with us since then. And Thanksgiving was started in a wholesome, holy, heartfelt example to all of America and all of the world. it was based around, you know, families and being thankful for the things that we have and for our country. And that's my impression of Thanksgiving. What's your kind of take on that, as far as, you know, the the real Thanksgiving, not this other stuff that we talked about?
So you're telling me that Abraham Lincoln started Thanksgiving and not some pilgrims and Indians that were over on the East Coast?
Absolutely.
I don't believe you. I'm just kidding. That's fake news. That's got to be fake news. I'm kidding, of course. Um,
Well, he made it official. Let's put it that way.
okay. Oh, actually put it on the calendar,
Yes,
so to
yeah,
speak.
he put it. He would. He it's he made it official.
Okay.
So but 1863 was when that whole thing came together. Yeah, I mean, we celebrate that from that standpoint, but even then, there's gaps of times going back to that. But again, the question is, what has Thanksgiving meant to you and your family?
Yeah, basically everything you hit upon, just a time for family to come together, give thanks, presumably to, you know, the higher spirit or to God or what have you, I suppose. And that makes sense that it would, either way, it would make sense to me whether it was the Pilgrims or it was Abraham Lincoln, because he was a pretty conservative man. So he probably most likely would have been more of a religious type and not kind of a godless um, leader, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
Um,
but
yeah,
go ahead. But he
I
made
was
it
just,
official. That's the thing. I mean, that's in our history. There wasn't Thanksgiving before then. Thanksgiving was our first Thanksgiving was 1863 in America.
hmm,
The first Thanksgiving, again, a national holiday
okay,
to
yeah,
celebrate everybody together.
that sounds about right. I mean,
Yeah,
if,
before then there was no national holiday. There was nothing at all. But again, the liberals have tainted this. They brought this thing up make to try and take away that, like you said, the godly, the wholesome, the spiritual
the family,
aspect, the
because
family.
we know they're against the family structure, so it would make sense that they would try to do something else to those, what is it, a stick in the spokes to disrupt more, you know, traditions that has held that have helped to keep this country together.
Right. And then if they can destroy Thanksgiving, then that's another thing that they can just, you know, tear this down and then, you know, take God out of everything and then
Put
all of a
something else in
sudden,
its place.
yeah,
That's what they're doing. Yep.
right. I mean, you know, things that I've heard for a few years is Turkey Day, you know, oh, it's Turkey Day, you know,
Yeah.
and that's fun. But on the flip side, you know, I don't know of any family that any Thanksgiving that I have been to where there isn't some thankfulness in some way that they thank God for that day and for, you know, being able to set some time aside. What do you think?
If I remember correctly, yeah. Seems like we don't really do that so much anymore. Kind of busy last year. I remember, yeah, usually whenever we had a Thanksgiving, whether or not it was with extended relatives or not, at some point we'd pray and give thanks to the higher power, God, that, you know, thank you for this bountiful feast we're about to have. And that was just
Yeah,
part of
there's
it.
some. That's my point. Is there's some element of thankfulness all across our land because this is something that is I think for the most part, you know, America specific. I mean, there's probably other countries that do it maybe on a different day or something like that,
I
or
wouldn't
pattern
know.
what we did. But you know, um, and then the other thing I just want to touch on too is like um, when this whole Thanksgiving taint came in. I had another friend of mine, and she looked into some different things because I said, "Hey, can you do some research?" Um, I think it was 2019, so last year, National Geographic did a piece on this, you know, this supposed thing that they said that the mayor or governor or whatever it was in Massachusetts that said this, we're going to call it Thanksgiving Day after this slaughter, which I can't imagine something so barbaric as somebody to say, oh, we had this big slaughter, and then next day we're going to call it Thanksgiving. And then the other thing was in a New York Times article that was 2015. It was, so that's at the tail end of the Obama administration going into the Donald Trump administration, and that there's this, turmoil that's starting. My thing is, and my question is, if it really happened, why wasn't this brought out way before? I mean, there's always been fighting among people. There's been slaughters. It's biblical. There's things that have happened all the way through Bible times and all the way through, the Khmer Rouge, Mao Zedong, Joseph Stalin. There's plenty of slaughters, and those are huge slaughters, genocides that actually happened with those folks. Over a million people with Khmer Rouge. Stalin is they say over 20, 30 million. The numbers are catastrophic that he was in charge of. And then Mao Zedong, however many millions that was. But the point that I'm trying to make by saying this is there was this skirmish that happened, and there was, if it did or didn't happen, rather, sorry about that, if it did or didn't happen, this was basically, if I remember correctly, around 100 years before our country started, and then 50 years after they landed. So whether it did or didn't happen, I just think that this is a terrible thing that the liberal people have brought up, and I'm talking about socialist liberals that are trying to tear down our country, and that they try and make this into a thing to take a pure, wonderful thing that happened in 1863 by a president that was abolishing slavery in America and fighting for that abolishment, and he could have died in the process. I mean, the Southern Democrats did get very close at that time, and so it's to me it's just I think it's just a very wrong and unkind and not nice.
Yeah,
these things up.
A lot of the things that they do, I call them the neoliberals. A lot of the things they do are not nice, and are meant to disrupt more than as much as they want to tout it now that they proclaim that Joe Biden's the winner of the election. Unity. They only want unity as long as it's unity under their control. Otherwise, if it's outside of their control, they're going to do what they can to bring others in, which is what we've seen the past 4 years.
Well, one thing that I determined here as a no party guy, and I'm glad you brought up the political thing. But on the flip side, I mean, I think we both agree from our previous conversation that trusting God in this situation, and whoever does get in office, I mean, God has a purpose in that person getting in. You believe that?
I do, yeah. Good or bad, we got to ride this out.
If it's a person that's more liberal, obviously he's got a rhyme and a reason. If it's a person that's more conservative, he has a rhyme and a reason. And so I'm going to trust God in this situation no matter what happens. I'm not going to really go to task on this, but I am going to trust God because, he knows it says that he's able to control, he can turn the king's heart as rivers of water. I mean, it says that in the Bible.
Yeah, he's God. He can do anything.
Yeah, good point. So I guess with that, just finishing off on a positive note on Thanksgiving is that I'm thankful for Thanksgiving from the standpoint of being able to really celebrate with family, celebrate with friends, and just be thankful for what we have. There's so many people that don't have different things in this life, And those are the times where we can, reach out and help those people.
Yeah, and that's the intention, is kind of just spread the good spirit, so to speak, around, especially since it's this time of the season.
Yeah, I just kind of finish off on a story here. So I remember when I was, I had just went through a divorce and all this stuff, and there's several Thanksgivings where, and that's no problem. The kids went and spent that time with their mom, and it did bother me. I was kind of alone on different occasions. I was in Chicago for a while, and then of course out here, but all those times, what I usually, not usually, what I ended up doing was I went to the VA hospital, I went to the Veterans Hospital and walked the halls and just encouraged vets and said, thank you for serving. And one time I met with these vets outside right here in Los Angeles, the VA hospital over in Wilshire. And they were all sitting around the picnic table, like couple, three of them, and they were telling me the stories of how they couldn't get in because of the government paperwork and all that stuff with the vets. And I said, well, let's, and they said, well, because we're not vets, we couldn't participate in the Thanksgiving dinner. I said, you gotta be kidding me. And I said, I'll buy you dinner. And there was nothing open around that area. So we all kind of piled in my van at the time, at a white minivan. And we piled in this white minivan, and I took them to Subway, and I hadn't had anything to eat either. So we had turkey subs and soup, and we just sat there for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I just listened to their stories. And those folks gave a lot, and they were in that situation. So that's what I would encourage people is, especially during this time, is find a way to help somebody else out instead of creating destruction and all these other things. I mean, Thanksgiving is based on not just you're for and no more, so to speak, but it's about helping others out there. Brandon, your closing thoughts?
As much as I would love to encourage that, I mean, I do agree absolutely and positively. However, the optimist side of me is counterweighted by my realistic, I guess, approach or perspective that, this year especially, a lot of people are fearful, uncertain, and from what I learned in psychology, and another documentary that I watched, when someone, say one human being or a family of human beings living in a bad neighborhood, they're so full of fear that they're unable to grow, they're unable to develop. And you see that kind of play out in Black communities. They're always, worrying about, whether or not there's going to be a drive-by down the street, or this or that, problems that are exclusive to low-income neighborhoods. The fear grips them. My point is that the fear grips them, and they're unable to grow out or, reach out. So what I've seen is that, well, just what I've seen firsthand, it doesn't seem like a lot of people are willing to give, or they themselves may be stretched out thin enough that they don't think that they can give, so it kind of prevents them from doing so. And especially with this lockdown, a lot of people are out of work, but I guess that's kind of me being a Debbie Downer. But yeah, I mean, all it takes is one person to kind of show by example, for sure. And I would encourage others that may be watching this as well, that if you're able to, spare a buck, or in your case, if you have time on your hands and you want to, show other people that there's still hope, I guess there's still hope for us. Go out and buy someone a sandwich or some hot soup, some was it hot
Help
chocolate? Yeah, something. Just kind of think, hey, what would this person appreciate?
That's a good point. I mean, a $2 cup of coffee, or a hot chocolate. You see somebody on the street corner. I mean, you can actually, if you don't want to, you can buy them a Starbucks card, or you see them going through. I saw a guy going through 7-Eleven the other day, and he was Native American as well. It was over in your neck of the woods, and and he was, struggling to, he was like $1 short or something like that. I said, keep your money, just put his coffee on my bill.
Yeah.
And he, I couldn't really understand what he said, but he was, of course, very thankful. And it was just a simple thing. It's like, for God's sakes, it's a $2 cup of coffee. Anybody can afford that. It's like, sharing a little bit from somebody else. It's, that's what made this country very strong, was sharing and watching out for our neighbors and things like that. And, especially during the Depression, there was a lot of stories back then. I think a lot of people have just become selfish, and I think that's what my challenge to close on this would be: find some way that you can help at least one person. It's like another video. It's like 5 minutes of prayer, 5 minutes of Bible reading. Just 5 minutes a day for something spiritual. That's what I'm saying. Is just find someone that you can say, what, God bless you, and you share something with them. And I think if the socialists would do that instead of trying to promote all this rhetoric, this country would be a lot stronger than it is. And I think that it'd be just an absolutely wonderful place.
Yeah, that's how I see the, what is it? I don't want to say metaphor, but the concept, Jesus coming back. That's kind of how I personally see it, is that it's going to be the spirit of Jesus that, and those of us that walk with him and walk in to be a better example of those who are in the body of the spirit of Jesus Christ. We act as he would have, and then that will be in a way like a resurrection, if you get what I mean, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. Well, that's a great way to finish it. So thank you, Brandon. Thanks for joining the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I hardly get a chance like this to talk with people or, have a serious discussion. Most people are so caught up with what's going on. Oh, and on that note, so yeah, with everybody having to wear face masks and it being more highly suggested or recommended, all we're left now with is looking at each other through the eyes. Some people aren't good at eye contact. I myself am very good at it. And the eyes are the windows to the soul, as some may have heard. And that's could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. That's how we're left to communicate nowadays. We can't see facial expressions anymore, so it's all in the eyes. And try to find somebody that you can see really needs the help, and it's not somebody that's trying to take advantage of those who would like to help.
Thanks, Brandon.
Absolutely.